What is going on, everybody? I am back today to talk about another Oscar Best Picture nominee, and I'm working my way through these. I just released my review for A Complete Unknown, and after this movie today that I'm going to be discussing, I have two more left to watch. I still need to see The Brutalist and I'm Still Here. And this movie that I'm going to be discussing today, I have heard a lot of positives about. I've been really looking forward to watching it ever since I saw the initial trailer. I just couldn't get over how incredibly mesmerizing the cinematography was solely from the trailer. And I learned from reading about this online that it's shot entirely from a point of view perspective, which I think is a really incredible filmmaking technique, and it hasn't been utilized a ton. I was really curious with the subject matter of the film, how that was going to translate and how it was going to feel emotionally. And the movie I'm going to be discussing with you today is Nickel Boys. Nickel Boys is directed by RaMell Ross, chronicles the powerful friendship between two young black teenagers navigating the harrowing trials of reform school together in Florida. So I was very excited to watch this movie, knew very little about it other than it was based off of a book and what I saw in the trailers and then hearing about the POV perspective. And what I will say about this movie is it's nothing short of a masterpiece, and it is one of, if not the best film of the decade so far. I cannot express enough just how much this movie moved me, and how much, as someone that went to film school and that loves the medium, that it reminded me why I love movies so much. And I think what RaMell Ross accomplishes here is truly magnificent. He does so many things that are unconventional when it comes to telling a narrative story that, like, when I just am going back and thinking about it, it really made the film such a unique experience. It felt like I was watching something I'd never seen before in my life. And I know there is methodology here that has been explored before in very different ways, but there's something about the way the filmmaking is utilized, even with some of the reveals in the third act, that I just think are nothing short of brilliant. And I really can't wait to tell you about this movie today. So at the beginning of the film, we are introduced to Elwood, who is living in Florida in the 1960s, and he lives at home with his grandmother. And we get little scenes at the beginning that briefly show his mother and like how she's not really around all that much, and so his grandmother is who's raising him. And we get like him as a young child going into his teenage years, and he is incredibly intellectual. He's like the top of his class, and his professor actually talks to him and tells him that he believes that he would be perfect to go to this technical college, so to start preparing himself for college and to get a better education. And Elwood is very excited by this. Like, he seems thrilled at the prospect of more learning, but at the same time, he is incredibly active in the civil rights movement, and he very much looks up to Dr. King. And we see him constantly going to these different civil rights activist meetings where he goes and pickets and all of these different things. And one day, he sets off to go to this technical college. A man pulls over in his car and says, "Hey, where are you heading?" And he tells him, and he says, "Hey, get in the car, like, I'll drive you there, it's not a big deal." And the man is dressed in very nice clothing, talks about how he just got the car, and the police pull them over, and we find out the man that was driving the car has stolen the car, and because of that, Elwood gets into serious legal trouble, and he ends up being forced into going to this school called Nickel Academy, which is a reform school for the kids that have been in legal trouble. And because it's in the 60s, the school is segregated, and so the white kids get this nicer building up front, and the young black men are pushed to the back of the school. And he gets there, and he's wrongfully incarcerated, and he ends up along the way meeting a young man by the name of Turner. And the entirety of the film is these two boys living out their life in this reform school together, trying to survive. So, like I said, this movie is nothing short of a masterpiece, and there are a multitude of reasons for that. But I want to start off with the first most obvious reason. This might be some of my favorite cinematography I've ever seen in a movie, period. I think you could pause this movie on any frame in the entirety of the film and just be completely mesmerized by what you're looking at. It is very clear everyone involved on the technical side of this movie was very much detail oriented when it comes to what they're portraying on screen. And this movie has some very dark and disturbing and unsettling moments in it, and the camera forces you to be a part of it. And I think putting us in the POV perspective of these characters is what makes the movie resonate so hard. Because, you know, as a white man, I will never know the experience of what it's like to be an African American. I have all I can do is empathize with people, and I've seen movie after movie, read history books throughout my life, and I still, as a person, can never grasp the idea of why a person is hated because their skin color is different. I was raised to love everybody, my family. When I was growing up, people around me, I was always raised to care about people no matter how they look. And I think that it's just still something to this day I cannot wrap myself around. And I've seen a lot of material that has really moved me when it comes to that subject matter. But this film in particular, putting you in the point of view perspective of a character that is experiencing racism at the highest form, where he is a young, bright, intelligent individual who is working and spending his entire life on getting a proper education while also fighting for the rights of his people, that is arrested for getting in the car with someone. It's just like, it's infuriating when you're watching it and you just can't wrap your brain around it. And I think choosing to put the viewer in that situation, it's such an incredible storytelling vehicle. And I think more people need to see movies like this, because I think for people that do not think about this, when we look at our culture now and with the way the conservative right is so focused on DEI and like really worrying about like, oh, if we preach too much in one direction, it's going to ruin equality. White people have never had to experience this ever in their entire life. They've never had to experience just trying to live for who you are because your skin color is different. And this movie, incredible. Like the cinematography, so masterful, and there are shifts in perspective between Elwood and Turner's characters. And I think at first I was wondering if that was going to be really difficult to follow, and it's a brilliant storytelling method. I just could not get over it. Secondly, the performances in this movie, absolutely unbelievable from top to bottom. Every single person involved in this movie deserves some kind of awards recognition. Everyone was so believable and committed to these roles, and they're dealing with very heavy subject matter. And I think that they all completely and totally handle it brilliantly from top to bottom. I could list each and every actor and actress in this movie, and it wouldn't be enough praise. I was just completely and totally floored by every single performance. I also love the music in this movie. I had to look it up afterwards because I kept thinking Sigur Rós when I heard a lot of the songs there. And I saw that Alex Summers was involved in this score. I believe has done some artwork for Sigur Rós and also has worked with him throughout the past. And that makes a whole lot of sense with the vibe and the ambiance that the score was giving off. And I feel like it does a really great job helping carry the movie along. I mean, even without music, this film is very heavy, and it also has some really beautiful, light, emotional moments, and the score just accompanies it really well. And like I said, what impressed me so much is I talked all about the cinematography and like the POV perspective, but there's also a lot of avant-garde filmmaking techniques here. Random bits of like footage cut in, associated with the time period, time jumps throughout the film, very sort of surrealist, abstract imagery that accompanies the subject matter of the film so well. And what I was blown away by is that RaMell Ross is able to convey this subject matter that's incredibly poignant and thoughtful and very important, and doesn't have to do it in a completely straightforward manner. He's able to utilize surrealism and abstract filmmaking to just add to the overall emotional gut punch. And there were moments that honestly reminded me of David Lynch, like just the way that certain shots played along and the way certain things transitioned. And it's David's my favorite filmmaker, and so that's the biggest compliment that I can pay a director. And there's just so many moments in this movie that stuck out in my brain. And like I said, the central focus of this is just how wrong and broken our country has been for so many years, and that it really hasn't changed all that much. Obviously, now there's not segregation and there's not those very horrible things that existed in the 60s, but racism is still incredibly prevalent, and Black people and people of color still deal with immense levels of hardships solely because of the color of their skin. And I think movies like this are so incredibly important because they speak volumes to an individual's experience. And I love that movies like this exist educate the public. And I'm so glad that this movie exists and is being nominated for multiple Academy Awards, because it's very deserving, but it puts this film in the center of a spotlight so people can know it exists and hopefully draw a wider audience to watch this movie. Because aside from just like the horrors of racism, this movie shows the beauty of friendship and the love of family. I think Elwood's grandmother is one of my favorite characters in this movie. Just her sacrificing so much because she loves her grandson and she wants the best for him. And the story of love between those two characters was so palpable and visceral and moved me to tears multiple times. And I think that this unlikely friendship between Elwood and Turner, just the way that it kind of blossoms over time. There were just so many unique relationship dynamics in the movie that I think work very well and that kept me completely and totally engaged in the story. And I think it's a movie that I'm just going to grow to appreciate more and more every time I watch it. And I think if you were on the fence at all whatsoever about watching this movie, please just do it. The filmmakers, the creative team, the actors, everyone involved in this movie deserves your attention for it, because it is truly one of my favorite films that I've seen this entire decade, and definitely tied, if not my favorite film from 2024. So have you seen Nickel Boys? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was absolutely incredible, and I already can't wait to watch it again. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.